up, get up, get up, get up, get up.
Greetings and salutations. How is your day?
Excellent.
Allow me to introduce myself. My name is James Madison Jr., son of James Madison Sr. of Orange County, Virginia. I represent the 5th Congressional District in the 2nd Congress to convene under our new Constitution. I pray your assistance with a problem, a perplexity, really. You see, when I took to my bed last evening, it was Wednesday, the 8th day of February, in the year of our Lord, 1792. And as I woke this morning, I soon discovered that while it was Thursday, the 9th day of February, as I expected, it was not 1792. It was, what's the year again? 2017.
Yeah.
This is astonishing to me. But even more astonishing, I was no longer at my boarding establishment in Philadelphia where I was attending the Congress, but I had been transported through some means that I cannot explain to the vicinity of our great battlefield of Yorktown, where just 10 years ago, General Washington secured our victory in the late war, or 236 years ago, I guess, from your perspective. I do not know how long we will be able to spend this time together, so perhaps I should relay some exciting news that just arrived in Philadelphia a few weeks ago. We received a communique from the government of Virginia, the Assembly, working in Richmond. They informed us that on the 15th day of December last, that they had ratified the 12 articles that we had proposed to be amendments to the United States Constitution. You understand the significance of this, do you not? Virginia became the 3/4 of the states necessary to put some of these amendments into effect. Now, 2 of the amendments did not receive the necessary 3/4 ratification, so they shall not go into effect, but 10 of them will. And this will be the first time that you will have amended your Constitution since it went into effect just 4 years ago. Exciting news. Now, I must own that I was not much in favor of a Bill of Rights, as it shall be called, at first. In fact, I even saw some danger to the act. For instance, how many rights do you have? Can you inscribe them all? Do you have the right to smile? Do you have the right to frown? Do you have the right to turn your head? If I ask you to inscribe all of your rights, could you do so? And if you omitted one, if you overlooked one, with the implication that it shall not be protected by your government, do you undertake such a task? Reason the second. Consider this, your right of conscience. How would you describe it? How would you describe it so that it could be protected appropriately? If you fail to describe this right and the objects to which it would pertain, would you still receive the protection for that right? Reason the third, we had taken great pains to design a government of very limited and enumerated powers, one in which a trespass on the rights of the people should not be expected. As my friend Mr. Hamilton so ably put in Federalist 84, why declare that things shall not be done where there's no power to do? So, you see, there are reasons for not having a Bill of Rights. But yet others pointed out that the essence of government is power, yes, and power, lodged as it must be in human hands, shall ever be liable to abuse. So additional safeguards are required. It was not until the last few days of the convention of 1787 that even the subject of a Bill of Rights arose. Colonel Mason of our Virginia delegation took the floor, and he said, while he wished that if the Constitution had been prefaced with a Bill of Rights, it would give great quiet to the people to have one. And with the aid of the state declarations, one could be prepared in a very short order. You may recall that Colonel Mason was the principal author of the Virginia Declaration of Rights in 1776, a document in which I played a minor role as well. And so he was eminently qualified to undertake such a task. And then Mr. Roger Sherman of Connecticut took the floor. And he said that while he was for securing the rights of the people for sure, he pointed out that the state constitutions were not being repealed by our new federal constitution, and thus remaining in effect would protect the rights of the people at that level. There was a motion made to compose a committee to draft a Bill of Rights, but it failed, and we went on to address other matters. 5 days later, we signed our new Constitution on the 17th day of September, 1787. We dispatched a copy to the Congress, then meeting in New York, and I immediately dispatched a copy to my friend, Mr. Thomas Jefferson. You may recall that Mr. Jefferson was serving as our ambassador to France at this time, so his reply took many weeks. But when I received it, he noted that while he was quite pleased to see many of the features of our government that we had designed, he noted that the absence of a Bill of Rights was a matter of great concern. I recall his words explicitly. He said, "A Bill of Rights is what the people are entitled to from every government on earth, whether general or particular, which no just government should refuse." Now, I respect the opinion of my friend, Mr. Jefferson, and still do, of course. I was not convinced. I had seen repeated violations of these parchment barriers committed by overbearing majorities in every state. Plus, to add a Bill of Rights at this juncture, I thought would have required another convention, and a convention in which the entire plan of government might be open to revision. A revision that I did not think would be harmonious to our initial efforts. It was not until the next year, 1788, that I began to finally see the political necessity for the Bill of Rights. As we gathered in Richmond to consider whether Virginia should ratify this new Constitution, that's when it became clear. Mr. Patrick Henry was quite prominent in that convention, you may recall. His towering figure and booming voice nearly carried the day against ratification. I could not offer the oratorical skills of Mr. Henry. I could only offer my reason and logic, which prevailed in the end, and Virginia ratified the new convention on the 27th day of June, 1788. And notice you're all holding a small pamphlet. I spy a familiar likeness on the cover. Is there an extra copy I might peruse? Ah, yes. You understand who this is on the cover, do you not? Who knows? Yes?
It's George Washington.
Yes, a very familiar likeness, a very good likeness of my friend and my compatriot, General Washington. You may recall he was elevated to the presidency of the convention, and even now sits as our president of these United States. Very good likeness. He seems to be holding an object and extending it to you, the visitor, the viewer. What is this object? Quill pen, precisely. And why would he be extending this to you, the viewer? Ah, I see. On the back cover. He's asking you to sign this document as we signed on the 17th of September. It says, "I, as one of we the people of the United States, affirm that I have read or will read our United States Constitution and pledge to maintain and promote a standard of liberty for myself and for my posterity, and do hereby attest to that by my signature." Wonderful idea. A handy little pamphlet indeed. You may recall that in 1787, to inscribe the Constitution took 4 large sheets of parchment, and yet today it appears to easily fit the pocket. The printer's art has made great strides. I assume that every citizen is provided one of these and carries it with him always?
No.
No? Well, this is a matter of concern. How do you assure that you know and understand your Constitution?
Well, Mr. Madison, you might want to take a look.
What is this, sir?
There are some statistics there.
This cannot be true.
It did it.
This is most distressing. This relates to me that a poll has been taken of Americans of your time. You understand a poll? Of 100 Americans, 39 of them were unable to name any of the rights secured by the First Amendment. This cannot be. Certainly you, my fellow Virginians, can name the rights secured by the First Amendment. 5 of them, which are, what is one?
Freedom of religion.
Freedom of religion. What is another? Freedom of the press. What is another? Freedom of speech. And another. Assembly. And the 5th, when you have grievances. When you have grievances of your government. The right to petition. You may congratulate yourself. You are more well informed than 39% of your American compatriots. 64% of Americans cannot name the 3 branches of their government. Certainly, you know this. Yes? 77% of Americans between the ages of 18 and 34 could not name one of the senators representing their state. This is most distressing news, sir. You should find this distressing. You must remedy this. As Mr. Jefferson has said, if a nation expects to be ignorant and yet remain free, expects what never was and never will be. I myself have written, a well-instructed people alone can remain a free people. If you neglect your Constitution, if you do not know your rights, the government shall fail, just like the Achaean League or the republics of Greece. Please take this distressing paper.
Mr. P, why have you done down?
I noticed there is another document in your handy pamphlet. On page 35, what do we find? Mr. Jefferson's lovely essay. Well, perhaps we can tie some chords together today. We're speaking of rights, yes? What are rights? How would you describe a right? What is a right, sir?
Your ability to do something.
Your ability to do something, yes. The permission, perhaps, that you have. Right? So, you know what rights are. Where do they come from? Do you pick them from the tree? What is the source of your rights? Anyone? God? Is that the only source of your rights? Does God give you the right to vote? Yes. Well, let's see what Mr. Jefferson has to say about this. Could someone stand and read for us the second paragraph on page 35? Who would like to? Who is the orator among you?
Alright, I started with we hold.
Yes.
Okay. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. That to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, derive their just powers from the consent of the governed.
Thank you very much. So we see there are 2 categories of rights. Rights endowed by your Creator, which are to be unalienable, and this word means what? Cannot take them away, inseparable, non-transferable. Yet, rights provided by your government, are those inalienable? If government grants you the right to vote, may government take that right away. So those rights are unalienable or alienable. Absolutely right. So government's rights are in one category, alienable. Natural rights endowed by your Creator are in another category, unalienable. You are well to know the distinction. This is interesting. On the opposite page, Amendment 27, you have added more amendments to our Constitution. The This is good news. We knew our work was not perfect, that it would require, shall we say, refreshment from time to time. You have added additional amendments. Interesting. The words of Amendment 27 strike familiar. No law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. I know these words well. I wrote them. These are the words to the original Second Amendment, which did not get ratified in 1791. And here it is ratified as your 27th Amendment. This is most surprising. And I see at the bottom of the page, it was ratified on what date? May 7th, 1992. 201 years late. Why is this? 201 years have elapsed before you have ratified this amendment. I will wager there is an interesting story behind this amendment that you would be well to investigate. Supposition only. As we left the convention on the 17th day of September, 1787, I noticed a young lady approaching Dr. Franklin. I was close enough not to intrude, but I overheard her ask the good doctor, Dr. Franklin, what kind of government have you given us? You may recall, our convention was conducted behind closed doors. No one knew what we had designed. But I shall remember Dr. Franklin's answer to this to my dying day. He said, a republic, madam, if you can keep it. I remember remarking to myself at the time, what a sublime sentiment. A republic, if you can keep it. What does the keeping of a republic require? It requires the intervention of each of its citizens, the active involvement of each of its citizens, the knowledge of your Constitution and how it functions. You notice that Dr. Franklin did not reply. The democracy matter. I myself have observed in Federalist number 10, democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with the security of people and the rights to their property, and have been generally as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths. And so thus we have not given you a democracy, a republic instead. Let me summarize my remarks thusly. Your rights are your most precious of property. Your right of conscience most precious of all. Governments are instituted, as we see Mr. Jefferson say here, to secure your rights against the predations of others. If men were angels, no government would be necessary. If angels were to govern men, neither external nor internal controls on government would be necessary. But in framing a government to be administered by men, over men, the great challenge is this. You must first enable the government to control the people, and in the next place, oblige it to control itself. And this is the purpose of your Bill of Rights, to oblige the government to control itself. Let me leave you with the words of my friend, Mr. John Jay. You may recall, he was not only our compatriot on the Federalist Project, he became our first Chief Justice of the Supreme Court. He said, every member of the state ought diligently to read, but also to study the Constitution of his country and teach the rising generation to be free. By knowing their rights, they will sooner perceive when they are violated and be better prepared to defend and assert them. Who is this rising generation of which Mr. Jay speaks? Naturally, you are the rising generation for these gentlemen, your teachers behind you. But will there come a rising generation after you? So who is Mr. Jay speaking to? To each of you, to all of us. Let's read and study the Constitution of our country and teach the rising generation to be free so that they may defend and assert their rights. With that, I will ask, are there any questions of me? Yes, ma'am.
Why didn't the original Second Amendment not get ratified?
Well, it failed by only one ratification. 3/4 of the states, of the 14 states in 1791, were required, and this amendment only received 10 ratifications, not 11, which was necessary. So it languished, apparently for 201 years. And as I said earlier, I will wager that the story behind this ratification will be of interest to you. No one is interested in my life, my experiences? Yes, sir.
What year were you born?
I was born on March 16th of 1751. Actually, I was born on March 4th of 1751, but the following year, someone decided to change calendars. So my birthday changed as well to March 16th. I was the first of 12 children. The very first of 12 children. So at first I had no playmates except the slave children. I played with them, they became my compatriots, my friends. Only later did I understand their distinction. But as the first of 12 children, I was obviously alone for a while, and only 6 of my brothers and sisters lived to reach adulthood. As I said, I was born in 1751. 5 years later, my brother Capelet was born, and he lived 36 days. 3 years after him, another brother was born, and he lived that day. 2 years later, another brother was born without life. In 1775, my 7-year-old sister Elizabeth and my 4-year-old brother Reuben both died of dysentery. So thus, only 6 of my brothers and sisters would enjoy adulthood.
What were the names of the 6 brothers and sisters?
The 6 brothers and sisters who lived. Frances, my sister, was the first sister born. William Ambrose was my first brother. William Taylor, another brother. The final brother, my final brother, the youngest brother, name escapes me at the moment. But the final child born was Frances with an E-S, named after my grandmother. She was born 1774. 1792, I am single. I have no children, of course. I have yet to marry. While I was pursuing my studies at the College of New Jersey, I pursued as well a young lady who unfortunately chose another. And during my first term as congressman, I pursued young Miss Kitty, quite a few years younger than I, but once again, she chose another. So I would love to be married at one time, at some point, but at this point in time, I'm dead.
Mr. President, did you have slaves?
Ah, yes. This professional question. Yes, I did not, myself, in 1792, own any slaves. My father, however, as an executor for our estate, inherited slaves from his father, approximately 80. So at one point, assuming the natural course of events, my father will die and I will inherit the estate, and then the slaves of our estate will be my responsibility. Now, Mr. Jefferson and I drafted legislation in 1777 for the Virginia legislature that would have permitted slave owners to manumit or to release their slaves, which was at that time against the law. And you may recall that in Mr. Jefferson's original draft of the Declaration of Independence, there was quite an extensive section which decried the slave trade, and that section was deleted by the Congress before the final draft was prepared. So Mr. Jefferson and I both troubled with this question, how to rid ourselves of this evil institution. Mr. Jefferson said it most ably by saying, "It is though we have a wolf by the ears. We can neither hold him close or let him go safely." And this was the perplexity that when I was born in 1751, slavery had been an institution of my state for well over 100 years. It was as culturally part of our experience as putting on clothes. So ridding ourselves of this institution was not a task that could be done quickly. and certainly not done without considerable care and forethought. The subject was discussed in our Constitutional Convention, and those of the northern states were quite in favor of prohibiting this in the Constitution. But the southern states, South Carolina in particular, made it very clear that if a prohibition of slavery was to be part of this Constitution, they were not to be part of this Constitution. They were not to be part of this Union. So the choice before us was to provide a more perfect Union than we had under the Articles of Confederation, or to insist that slavery be done with here and now. As you recall, in Article 5, we placed a provision of 20 years to eradicate the trade in slaves as a first step. We knew it was a first step, and only a first step, but a necessary step. And when that 20 years expired, of course, we expected that Congress would take the appropriate steps to outlaw the slave trade. Is there any other questions?
What was your father's name?
My father's name is James Madison as well. That's why I'm James Madison Jr.
Yes. What number were you to sign the Constitution?
Oh, I was near the last. I don't recall the exact number. There were 39 of us there that day that signed. Mr. Mason, of course, Mr. Randolph of Virginia, neither could sign, and Mr. Gary of Massachusetts. But my signature came towards the end. I was intent on recording everything as best I could, so I was kind of engaged with other activities until it became apparent that I needed to sign as well. Yes, sir.
With the upper years, we were reading Plato's Republic, and when he's describing the different forms of government, he describes democracy in a very unflattering light. It actually sounded very similar to your opinion of democracy. And I was wondering, were you influenced by Plato or?
Well, of course, I read Plato and Cicero and Aristotle. Those were part of my education. I was educated at home for the first 11 years of my life. My grandmother Frances, my mother Nellie were my principal instructors. At the age of 11, I was sent to a boarding school in King and Queen County, where I studied then under an instructor whose name escapes me at the moment. But for 5 years then, I studied classics, studied Latin and Greek, French. My instructor was a Scottishman, so French I learned was with a Scottish accent. We learned geometry and mathematics, physics, all of the sciences. At the end of my 5 years in this boarding school, I returned to my home in Montpelier, where I studied under Reverend Thomas Martin. He prepared me quite diligently for entrance examinations at the College of New Jersey. And there we studied intently our Latin and Greek. To gain admittance to the College of New Jersey, I had to be able to translate books of the Bible from Greek into Latin and Latin into Greek. I had to be able to speak extemporaneously in both Latin and Greek. This was the entrance exam. Now, I entered Princeton College of New Jersey in 1769, at the end of the freshman year. I took the freshman comprehensive exams and was given credit for my freshman year. And then the remaining 3 years, I completed in 2 and nearly killed myself in the trying. It was a most arduous undertaking, one that I would never repeat. But I completed my 3 years of instruction in 2 and received my bachelor's degree in 1771. Any other questions? Sir.
Mr. President, I know you haven't been, and
I'm sorry, Mr. President, you said?
are you not president?
I would be so honored, but I feel I'm not qualified to hold such high office.
I know you haven't spent much time in 2017, but what do you think of our new president?
The essence of government is power, and power lies, as it must be in any human hands, will be ever liable to abuse. Mr. President Trump, if that is his name, must adhere to the Constitution like every president. So how will you know that he transgresses his enumerated powers? How will you know? You will not unless you have studied those powers that you shall find in Article 2. So I would behoove you, and I would implore you to understand the limits that we have placed on this chief executive and be watchful for times of transgressing those limits. If there are no further questions, then I see that I've taken much of your time, which I assume to be as precious as mine. So then ask, does anyone know where I might continue to coach to go to Philadelphia?
Mr. King.
Mr. King probably knows.
Well, thank you very much for your kind attention and your questions. I remain your humble and obedient servant.